Well, every nation has a government and is held together by a constitution, whether it's written or unwritten. The constitution that was formed here originally included what they call a Negro clause. Only Sierra Leone and Liberia have Negro clauses in their constitutions. What it does is it stops any non-Negro or non-African from being able to become a naturalized citizens here. That's why the Lebanese have been here for over 100 years and they don't have citizenship. Their grandchildren don't have citizenship. They don't have it here because there's a Negro clause on the Constitution that bars non-Africans from achieving citizenship. So it's not by coincidence that this would be one of the countries that would open the door based on ancestry. Because you have two rules of nationality or citizenship. You have jus soli, which is citizenship by the soil that you're born on, and the government can decide to give it to you or not. Then you have jus sanguinis. Jus sanguinis is the law that says that you are born into your nationality. It's nationality by blood. This country recognizes both. You can be born to a Sierra Leonean in Australia, and as long as you can prove that that's my mama and my daddy, they will give you your citizenship here because they have that already on their constitutional book. With people coming back with scientific evidence, it changed the game. It changed the game because one, there's no denying or blood test, especially if it's scientifically sound. And so even the ideal to bring more people into Sierra Leone's development, it makes us like the perfect development partners. Those who have connections here. Everybody don't have the blood connection. Some people got different kind of connections here. But for those who have the blood connection, they've been given citizenship for at least almost a decade. Now after Isaiah Washington got his, he didn't open up the door for anybody else to get theirs. And he's a celebrity. He's a Hollywood movie star. Maybe he had his own connections, the way that he moved, but they wasn't available to the common people like me and you. You understand that? So in that process, of course, there's people here within the government and people within the, intellectual circles that understand that this will be a positive development for this country if some of the descendants are able to come back and develop. So citizenship comes also with the obligation to be an asset to the country. It's not just because you have a background. You understand that? It's also, you have to come back and be an asset to the country. And if you can't be an asset to the country, and that's what Sister was saying earlier about, everybody don't necessarily, make the cut. I mean, I'm nobody's judge, but everyone won't make the cut based on how they operate when they come back. And so, right now, in 2016, my wife and I, we took a brother to, we actually hosted and guided a brother, and the brother came. We heard about him through the Gullah Nation of North America, and they said, "Hey, this guy is coming. This guy is coming. Y'all need to help him. He don't have nowhere to go, and he want to connect with his people." The brother ended up being a Timni descendant. We happened to be connected with the Timni people. In fact, I took him to the village, the first village I ever entered in Africa. Me being a Medinka descendant and him being a Timni descendant, it was easy for me to introduce him to the people that I had already been building with for years. So we facilitated that connection. And at that time, we also approached the Sierra Leone government through the monuments and relics to appeal for citizenship for people with DNA testing. So I don't know, but I don't think that there was ever a group or an individual of African American who had a descendancy or a connection here to go directly to a government and say, "Hey, what about us?" And what they told us was, they said, "Well, if Isaiah Washington got it, of course you can get it." He said, "But there's no process. There's no process. There's no process. They can't tell you. An exact process, an exact policy." You understand? And so, what happened at the end of it is that we was told, go and get a petition. If the Gullah Geeche people and the African ancestry DNA people want to request for their citizenship, then go get your people, y'all make a petition, appeal to the president, and let him know that you guys want to start getting your citizenships. And so somehow, some way, the groups got split. The African ancestry DNA testers went one way, and the Gullah Geeche people went another way, or got left behind. We didn't go another way, we got left behind. And what you see now is the result of that first brother coming, us connecting him to his people, him coming back for several groups with numerous people, them applying for their citizenship, groups splitting off of them, groups splitting off of this African ancestry DNA testing group, and going their own path to create their own clique, their own circle, and the split off group actually getting the citizenship before the group that was led by the man who first went in 2016 with us.
Wow.
So there's been disunity among the African ancestry DNA testers coming back to Sierra Leone, and there was not a process. So we was trying to hope that, one, not only DNA testing, but also Gullah Geeche people as a whole should have a right to have citizenship in Sierra Leone. Why? Why? Why do I say that, Chief Foday? I say that because, what is Gullah Geeche, first of all? Gullah Geeche is a multi-ethnic African community of people in the United States of America that were able to preserve more of our Africanisms than any other identifiable group of African Americans. Gullah Geeches are those who fought an over 100-year war against the United States of America for our freedom in Florida, in what they call the Seminole Wars, but we know that it was the Gullah War. We freed ourselves. Even when Lincoln said, "Okay, you're emancipated, and come and join the army so that you can get free for yourself," we didn't hesitate. The Gullah Geeche people on the Gullah Geeche Sea Islands were the first free, emancipated Africans in the United States of America history. And so it's not a coincidence. Anyway, when the colonizer was going to the United States or to other parts of the Americas, they were seeking places where they could establish commercial colonies. Not just colonies so they could just dump their population there and start life over in another place. They wanted to commercialize it. And so the commercialization of colonies ultimately led to what we have today: capitalism, imperialism. These are the roots and the ingredients of those two things that challenge us even to this day. When you see people come from China and they come here and they're able to take as much resources as they want and pay a bribe at the door, that is imperialism. That is indicative of a continuing colonial relationship between the people in this country and the outside world. Sierra Leone is still being exploited heavily. Heavily exploited. We should not live in the conditions that we live in this country. And that's for the 54 African states. And so here, the Gullah Geeche people were among the founding settlers of Freetown. In fact, there were hundreds that came back from Nova Scotia in a group that made up to 1,192 people. They actually made up 1/3 of the African American population that was evacuated from largely New York and Charleston. And the majority of the people were actually formerly enslaved in Virginia or the Carolinas. So these were people that were directly connected to the Creole, rice cultivation, indigo, cotton-based Gullah Geeche culture. You got to know the crops that our ancestors were took there to grow, and then you can match them to the origins of where they took our ancestors from. Rice. Rice was first planted by the hands of the Mandinka people in West Africa over 2,000, 3,000 years ago. When I say that, it's very important to know that there's only two seeds of rice that can grow on Earth. One is an Asian grain. The other one is the African grain. The original African grain is from here, this region. The European called from Senegambia to Liberia the Rice Coast, or the Upper Guinea Coast, because rice was the staple here. But you can go to another place, it'd be yam, it'd be potato, it'd be something else. But here it was rice. Here in Salon, we say we chop rice for breakfast, we chop up for dinner, we chop up for snack. You get to eat rice 2-3 times per day. And so that rice culture was transported on the ships with us in our brains from Africa to the modern United States of America. And then the Europeans who were enslaving us, they were very crafty. Very crafty. It's like make and model. Just like when you go look for a vehicle. You want the best branded make and model. They want the best branded make and model enslaved Africans that they could get for the kind of agriculture that they was invested in. Because these were commercial colonies. Slavery was economic first. So when they realized that they could plant rice in South Carolina low country because of the rise of the tides, and from being in West Africa, they realized that along the rice coast, the people knew how to cultivate rice by capturing the tidal water. So they had tidal rice cultivation, not just swamp. They would capture the water that comes from the sea. Dig ditches, dikes, extreme systems, extreme, like when we talk about STEAM today, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, we used all of that. That's exactly what was exploited from us. They didn't take money from us. They took that STEAM, took that knowledge, and forced us to apply it to their colonial interests or be punished. And so that was the situation. It was captivity. You better do it. And so, particularly in the Gullah Geeche lands, what happened is that in 1670, there was a group of British colonizers who were formerly settled and creating plantations in the modern Caribbean country of Barbados. And Barbados, for those who know or don't know, Barbados was like the main British hub. Jamaica was controlled by the Spanish first. Remember, the British had to fight the Spanish off the island. That's why you had Spanish Town in Jamaica. But Barbados was an island that was settled by the British. And it was their main transport hub. So if the British is bringing you from anywhere in Africa, chances is it took you to Barbados to be broken in. It was a breaking place. They taught you how to do the work that they wanted you to do, no matter where you were going to get sold to in Barbados. They broke us there. And first there was poor Europeans. These Europeans weren't rich. Sometimes we think that they were smart and rich and had a bunch of, these was the poorest, nastiest, corrupt, criminal type of people you can meet. And so they had no integrity and no morality about how they was operating. It just wasn't in them or their culture. All they wanted was profits. And so Barbados served as a hub. So the first group that settled Barbados, they started getting competition from a larger group that had money from Britain. So the larger group from Britain was buying up and making larger plantations. So this group of small farmers, they packed up their enslaved Africans, took all their money, all their pounds, and they boogied. They invested in a new colony in North America. The colony that they invested in became modern-day South Carolina. That was in the year 1670. There was a group of British colonizers with their enslaved Africans who first settled what we know today as South Carolina. Meaning that you will not take Gullah Geeche history, culture, or heritage back past that time. 1670 would be the official circumstances that created the ethnogenesis for a new ethnicity in America. If there was no Carolina, there would be no Carolina rice. There would be no Carolina rice without Africans from the rice coast of West Africa, period. And so 1670, when they got there, South Carolina was like a forest. You know, they needed Africans who knew how to work the forest. They needed Africans who knew how to catch the tide waters. They needed Africans who already lived near a coast and knew how to live where there was a whole system of rivers going down to the Great Sea. If you look at the topography, the geography of Sierra Leone on the map, and you look at the geography of South Carolina on the map, they are almost the same exact size. They're similar in shape. But if you look down to their coastlines, you'll see a bunch of rivers coming from the interior and emptying out into the same Atlantic Ocean on both sides.
Wow.
On this side, there's how many rivers going down from upline? How many rivers empty out into the Atlantic Ocean in this own territory known as Sierra Leone today? You go to South Carolina, you find the same thing. So that gave like a similarity. You can bring people from Sierra Leone and they could actually have all the knowledge they need to transform this into a prosperous commercial colony because they know this terrain. So the first thing that the Europeans did, they didn't immediately start to transport Africans in. They had Africans with them, but first they were just trying to settle their colony. So they had to clear the land and stuff like that. So they begin to look for what kind of cash crop will they be able to grow that will make the colony wealthy, that they can grow it, process it, package it, export it back to Europe, export it around to their colonies, and then their people, their white people will buy it, and the people who got the plantations will get rich. The people who are in the middle will get rich. So that was their big scheme. At the end of the day, in 1672, here in Sierra Leone, 2 years after the people from Barbados went and settled South Carolina colony, 2 years old, Bunce Island was opened up here by the British government originally. It was the British Royal African Company, BRAC. They used to brand our ancestors with that, so that you will know this is one from Sierra Leone. When I say brand, make, and model, I'll get back to it. Sierra Leone was a brand of enslaved Africans. When they came from Sierra Leone, you knew that they could do certain stuff that the other ones couldn't do. If you need to clear a forest and you need artists that know how to work with iron, people who are expert farmers can put seed in the ground and it will grow anywhere, you need people from here. There was expert farmers and there still are expert farmers here. And so another aspect that we sleep on as well is medicine. European, now they're running around like they have medicine. But the reality is that in those days, they needed our remedies. We knew the leaves and the roots. We knew the plants. And even when we went to America, we learned them back. We mastered them back. So we didn't have hospitals. They didn't take us to hospitals. Hospitals only been desegregated for what? 50, 60 years, if that. So this is the conditions that we were living in, that we no longer live in, that we have to put ourselves into the mind frame of to get an understanding. So in 1672, Bunce Island was first established as a British fortress, commercial fortress. Again, commercial. Their purpose is always commercial. Don't forget it. Christianity, commerce, colonies. That's the Europeans' economic system. So, so to bring it up to speed for you, in 1672, Bunce Island began to literally send Africans to British colonies in the West. By 1700, the colonizers in South Carolina realized that they could plant Asian rice. Because by that time they had circumvented Africa. They was over there in India. They was messing with them people now. So they was getting hold of that rice. And they needed something that they could feed the enslaved Africans so that they could work, so they could have strength. So in around 1700, they realized that they could grow West African rice. And that the Africans from that region already knew how to do everything. They didn't have to teach them nothing. They didn't have to be literate, nothing. All they had to do was put them in a situation and they was going to naturally grow rice plantations. And so the first cash crop that brought immense wealth to the state, back then it was a colony of South Carolina, was rice. If you check, even the people in South Carolina today eat a lot of rice. And so that rice connection is actually a regional connection in Africa. It's not just a connection that's by coincidence. The Europeans said, we need these Africans that grow this rice in this part of Africa to go over here to this colony and make us wealthy. And they came here. Now on Now on the other hand, right, so that was around 1700. I'm getting to where I'm going now so you can understand the connection between Gullah Geeche people and Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
By the early 1700s, South Carolina had an enslaved African majority, and it maintained it all the way till past emancipation. South Carolina and Georgia was majority black states from almost beginning. And so there was two aspects. There was the rice that the European needed, and there was the mosquito that carried the malaria that the white man feared. So when you put that together, he had to create a circumstance where he could exploit this labor without getting sick and dying. So the people that we call Gullah Geeche today, people like myself, my wife, and many others, we identify as the living descendants of those people who created a Creole rice culture in South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, and Florida. The reason why we identify with that is because through that identity, we also are able to reconnect with our African and our Caribbean roots. So when we say many roots, one fambo, it really means that a lot of people in America feel very disconnected from the Caribbeans and the rest of the African world. But when you talk about Gullah Geeche people, they embody the both. They embody all three. And so 1750, the mid 18th century was the height of the transatlantic slave trade, the Mafat. It was the height of it. And there was more Africans being taken from the continent of Africa to the Americas at that time than ever before and ever since. And so at that time, they say over 40,000 would leave here, like within a number of 2 to 3 years from here, Bunce Island alone. So Bunce Island, at the height of the transatlantic slave trade, became the #1 fortress to send Africans from Africa directly to the United States of America. They didn't go to the Caribbean first. I'm talking about direct African importation. I'm talking about this documentation of people leaving with their boats in Charleston, going to Bunce Island, fooling up with Africans, turning around and coming back. You know the Bush family, George Bush and them, they have an ancestor that died here in Sierra Leone, capturing Africans from Sierra Leone. Y'all know that? The Bushes, George Bush and them. Check it out, do the research. So all of this is connected. People who were living in Boston, they wasn't even in colonies where there was agriculture. They were sending ships just because of the money and the profits that was involved in the trade of human flesh. They didn't even have plantations for you to work on. They just seen that they can make some money if they sent the ship over and bought some and flipped some down Charleston. So they were selling us like crack, y'all. Literally. In the streets. On the auction block, just like they do right now in the courthouses. Same thing. No, it's still the same handcuffs, same shackles. Same white people playing the judge and jury over our lives. There's no difference. So at that time, there were so many Africans leaving from Sierra Leone going over there because the demand for Africans who actually knew how to produce rice was high because rice became the #1 crop. It became the #1 crop in America, y'all. Rice actually built the British Empire. I'm talking about immense wealth from rice. And then to go with it, they also invested in indigo and cotton. The reason why I say it's very important to know your regions, indigo, cotton, and rice are staples here in this region of West Africa. Back then, when the British was taking us and putting us on the auction blocks, Sierra Leone wasn't this current country. Sierra Leone was a name that was given to this particular coast because of the mountainous peninsula that they came and positioned Freetown on. When they first came, they was blown away. Pedro de Centro, 1462. He named this place Sierra Leone because of the mountains. But all the Europeans that came after them, whether they was British or Dutch or whatever, they grabbed the name. Later on, when the British came to colonize, they named it the same name, but the English, what do we call it, Anglicized it. You know, they made it English. So it went from Sierra Leone in Portuguese to Sierra Leone. And the name then began to identify territory. Originally, Sierra Leone territory went all the way up into the Guinea Highlands, all the way up to Foday, as far as Kankan in Guinea, it was viewed as a large geographical economic block. Like everybody's markets was integrated and tied there some way. The people were related in some way. It was literally the descendants of what we know as the Mali Empire, who populated this area. And so we have to understand those things. Now, to go forward, when the American Revolutionary War broke out, the British valued South Carolina as a very profitable colony. And if you know anything about the American Revolution, you know that it was the European colonizers, their subjects, who rose up against their own government, their own monarchies. They rose up and they transformed those colonies into states. Just like they gave us independence in Africa, and they went from being colonies into independent states. What the hell is an independent state? Someone tell me. If we're still colonized. That's what neo-colonialism is, and that's what Kwame Nkrumah was trying to help us understand. Their relationship to us directly changes, but the system of exploitation does not. And so, during that war, the British made a call for any Africans who were enslaved by the rebels to flee and join the British side. They would give them guns, they would give them freedom, they would give them land, whether the British win or lose. And after the war, after the British lost, they realized that they had confiscated a whole bunch of property from their rebels. And they did give their word to give us some freedom, right? And some land, right? So they evacuated those who fought on the British side, the British loyalists. They evacuated 3,600 to Nova Scotia, which was the largest community. They also evacuated some, left them in Florida, left them in Cuba, left them in Jamaica, Barbados. They took people who was formerly enslaved in America during the American Revolution and then scattered them throughout their other remaining British colonies. So in 1787, the first group of Africans from the diaspora who ever returned back to the continent of Africa to form a settlement. They came back with the promise of freedom, and they originally came by way of London. They was called the Black Poor there. They was comprised of Africans from the West, from Americas, who had been living or enslaved, or what they would say endangered to their owners, who were probably absentee landlords of plantations in the Caribbean or the Americas. And so they had their own butlers and stuff, you know, already. They had us in their house. But what happened is that Britain never had a plantation system. They never took us there to grow, they never took us there to do those things. That wasn't their interest with us. But we could watch their babies and wash their clothes and cook for them. We could be their servants. So there was a lot of Africans in Britain that was under that status and under that status. But what happened is that because of the American Revolution, the soldiers that was returning with their booty of war. They was returning with the Africans that they basically gripped up. And they took them to Britain, and they ended up becoming poor in Britain. Of course, they was enslaved, so they had to be poor. Where would they get money from? But what happened is that they released them in Britain. When they released them in Britain, they didn't have any social welfare system. Nobody took care of them. So the abolitionists, the anti-slavers, the same ones who pushed commerce, Christianity, and colonialism in Africa, while on the other end saying, well, we're suppressing the slave trade. You suppress the slave trade only to commercially colonize us and bring your Christianity here so that it's permanent on our brains. So you really actually brought a worse system. And some of us think that because the British said we're going to end this slave trade, that they was helping us, that they were our friends. It was no different than in America when they emancipated us. That wasn't, there's no such thing, that's not emancipation. They may have released you from one form of bondage and put you in another one. And that's what happened here. And so the Africans from this particular region, if you look down to the south of this country in their Kinema, they have a Gullah forest. The Gullah forest is a region. It's a large forest that there was a lot of people from different African ethnicities Some were from the Niger-Congo language-speaking families, other ones from the Manding-speaking families. And so they merged there. People who came from different civilizations, spoke different languages, that were all Africans, that migrated to the region. Now that forest is a sacred thing. This is why here in the secret societies, you don't enter without going to the bush. You gotta survive the bush first. Because this is a bush culture here. This is a forest culture here. The people understand how to go into a bush and clear it out and take care of it. How to live inside of a forest. So the first rainforest that you meet coming down the coast of West Africa is the Gullah forest. And the Gullahs are known as the foresters of the region. And this is why that name carried over to our ancestors, that when they were taken from Bunch Island, from this region, and we just say Gullah. Well, this Gullah. This is a, and right next and right position east of the Gullah is the Geechee. And the Geechee have a strong Manding element within them from a long, long time ago. But they also represent the Niger-Congo language families. These are people that we would call Bantu, people who was part of the forest region. Above the forest region, where you get into Mali and Timbuktu and stuff, you're not in the Sahara, you're in the Sahel. You're in the western Sudan. It's a different geographical space. So people from both these cultures met up right here at this point, where the forest meets the Sahel. So both cultures combined in this particular region, and they created the best of both worlds. So there was highly advanced people here at the time. The average African that they took away probably could do 1,000 times more labor and have more skill and science and knowledge than what their captor had. And so that's the thing. They transferred our wealth to them in that way. So when they first came back, the Europeans said, well, we have to free these Africans in London. The people in London said, well, we got a common law. If you're a pauper, if you're poor, then you can only go to your tribesmen, your clans. Yes, Europeans have tribes. You had to go to your tribe. If you was poor and you needed help, you couldn't go to somebody else's. Us being Africans, not knowing what tribes we come from and not having no source, we ended up poor. The only people that would take care of us during that time of our vulnerability was those who were seeking to colonize Africa in the name of ending slavery. Of course we wanted to end slavery. We was the direct victims. We was down with that struggle right there. So we thought we was building a partnership with Europeans that understood our struggle. And they exploited that like they do today. And so the first group was 400 people. There was a man named Henry Spietherman. He came here to Sierra Leone. He seen the area. He was a botanist. He said this would be a perfect place to bring Africans back to resettle them after slavery. They looked at the area. Britain had the largest slave fortress. We talk about Goree Island, but do you know that the largest slave factory on this coast, from Liberia up to the Senegambia, is not Goree Island, it's Bunce Island, 25 miles away from Freetown. And Bunce Island is the most important slave fortress directly to the African American population. That's why we're taking DNA tests and coming back Monday, coming back Timmy. The Black Panther was a Limba. Chad Boseman was a Limba. Understand this. There's a reason why this is happening. Marcus Garvey's descendants are Mendes. Martin Luther King's descendants are Mendes. How is this happening? You know why? Because this DNA test is checking the matriarchal lineage. And they took women from here. When you go to Bunch Island, you will see where they had the women and kids positioned. And they took more men, but they made sure they took some women and kids from here too. That means that empty DNA. That means that empty DNA is within us. A lot of those who call themselves African Americans. And other places. We met a sister who was a Mende from Brazil. You see her, you think she was a Latina. But when you look at her features, she has Mende features. She has the chinky eyes, she has the high cheekbones, she has the straight teeth. And when she came here and met the Mende, she met a person that she looked identical with, but she was just a lighter breed. I like him. So these are the things that we're seeing with our own eyes happening from our perspective here, being here 8 years. Now, when they finally, this guy Henry Smitherman went to York, London, he went there and he went to the abolitionists and said, hey man, y'all should form a colony. He convinced them of the colony ideal. And they bought it. They said, yeah, that is a nice place. We can do that. We can do that. So they end up gathering over 400 of the black poor and brought them back, and they became the first settlers of the province of Freetown. That was the name of the first settlement. That was pre-Freetown. It was only 400 people. 50 of them were white women. They kicked them out with their white lovers, everything. And so they brought them here. That colony fell miserably. There was 3 traditional or local kings who actually met with the British and swapped, literally like took things for the land on 3 occasions. They actually had those treaties at Foday College. So sometimes we say, well, how do you know? What kind of agreement did they have? You know, what kind of treaty did they sign? And we don't know because usually probably was word of mouth. They was confusing our people. But here in Sierra Leone, at Foday College, which is the first Western university of higher learning in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa, they have documentation of the actual agreements, the actual treaties that they were signing with the different tribes and the different people. They have them. Like they literally were renting the chiefs. They was giving the chiefs money per month so that they could keep the peace in their area and the trade can flow down to the European. If they started fighting, then they would send an expedition against the fighters to get peace again so that they can keep getting the trade and taking it out to Europe. And so that's how the colonialism came about. But at the end of the day, when they came back, they met first with a king named King Tom. King Tom heard that these were Africans who were taken away. At the time, the transatlantic slave trade still was jumping. Bunce Island was jumping at the time when they brought these people back. So they knew that this was a place where they had to be free, right alongside, right within a whole environment where slavery was rampant. Bunce Island, 25 miles away from the colony of Freetown. Imagine that. I would be intimidated by that. I wouldn't make too many fast moves. If you said be a Christian, I would be a Christian. You understand? I'd be afraid. And so that first colony fell. After that, a lot of people died from the first settlement. I mean, from the first trip. The British sent back for reinforcements. When they sent back for reinforcements, they came. But King Nyabano, who was the second king, was actually stronger than King Tom, who did the first deal. He disagreed with that. He said, well, you got to pay me too. This is the second time that the British came and docked off and paid the Timni kings to be able to settle the liberated Africans, the freed Africans. And they agreed. They agreed in spirit that, yes, these people can come and live here among us. They didn't know that the British was going to colonize those people and use those people as a buffer group to colonize them. They didn't know that. That's what the British had in mind. And even the Africans who they settled didn't know that. So, long story short, there was another man, another king named King Jimmy. The legend has it that the British, some of the white boys, they abandoned the colony. They didn't have no way to subsist, and they embarked on slave catching. They left the province of Freedom and started capturing Africans for money, taking them to Bunce Island, this. So the legend has it that there was a village attacked by the British, and in retaliation, the Timni, under a man named King Jimmy, rose up and burned down the whole first settlement of Exodus Africans. Burned it all down. There was only 50 remaining survivors, and they ran back to the British side, and the British protected them until another group came. That second group that came from Nova Scotia, but they were not Nova Scotians. They were formerly enslaved Africans from the modern United States of America that was only in Nova Scotia, Canada for 5 years before making Exodus back after protesting to the British government because of the poor land that they got. They didn't like the weather, and they didn't like the way they were being treated. So some of the population that was forcefully evacuated from New York and from Charleston, they ended up appealing to the British government to say, yo man, can you take us away from here? Or give us what you said? Like, we are not gonna treat us fine, we can't plant our crops here. No, get us off this land. And they had heard, they had sent out a mission by a man named Thomas Peters. Thomas Peters led a mission. He went over to Britain. He met with the members of the Sierra Leone company who had brought down the first group. And he told them, he said, man, we want to go to that colony. We'd rather be there than in Nova Scotia. And they was like, yo, this is perfect. This is perfect. So they sent over some company administrators. They went over and they went church to church, community to community throughout Nova Scotia, recruiting people for the Exodus. Our people immediately began to organize based on religious power, because the Europeans didn't recognize our political power, but they wanted to recognize our religious power. So we was allowed to organize religiously, but not politically. And so that's why the black church became so prominent, because if you got a congregation, that's your community, that's your extended family. And if you got a head on top of any community, that's where you get your clergy from. And so we tried our best to work with their religious system to create a sense of community for ourselves. So people like Boston King, people like Moses Wilkinson, people like who else? What's his brother's name? That came back. Yeah, John Kizzle. Now John Kizzle was one to remember. John Kizzle was believed to have been captured from Sierra Leone, from Shabro Island. He was a Shabro. Took him to Charleston, South Carolina, where he was a slave. Basically, he got Geecheefied. He started talking our language and started eating. He became part of that culture. And they also became a founder of not only Nova Scotia, Black Nova Scotia, but also a founding father of Freetown. And he helped a lot with reconnecting the people with those who was coming back. So he was believed to have been a royal stock as well. So he was a great, great man. There's a book out there about him. You can check it out. But so we had these legendary figures that was British loyalists. They would fight. They fought for their freedom in America. The white man said, "I'll give you the gun. You can get free." And they said, "Hell yeah!" They ran away from Massa and they got the gun and they started killing Massa. And when they killed Massa, the man who they fought for said, "Come on, I'm gonna get you out of here." You know why? Not because he loved us, but because that means he's robbing Massa. He's putting the nail in the coffin, and you won't get him back. You understand? In fact, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and them, they appealed to Britain and said, "Hey, boy, you stole all our slaves. That's our property," and they had to pay them reparations. They had to pay them for their losses. You understand? We're still waiting for it, just so y'all can get that. Yeah. Europeans get it among themselves. That's why the Jews is good. You understand? So, at the end of the day, speed it up just a little bit, and on March 11th, 1792, a group of formerly enslaved Africans, who today would be classified as African Americans, made the first successful exodus and settlement that still stands to this day as the capital city of Freetown, Sierra Leone. We made that 1792. Imagine, 228 years ago. We came back. There was a group that came 5 years before that, but they failed. So, among that 1,192 African Americans, the majority were Gullah Geeches, people who had, since they had been taken to America, had started being forced to work on these rice plantations, who had that culture, who came from those places. In fact, the Gullah Geeche people live more remote than any other enslaved Africans. The Europeans couldn't be close to us for certain months of the year. We got an opportunity to play our drums when he wasn't around. When he come, we would act, "Hey boss, how you do, boss?" We'd act stupid. We act foolish. We tap dance for them because we know that 3-4 months out the year, we got Africa right here in America. We're going to remember our traditions. We're going to do our ring shouts. We got our praise houses. We're going to eat this rice just like we did at home. It means more to us. It's not just eating rice to us. It's being who we are. Geechees eat rice. They said you're a Geechee rice eater. Geechees eat rice. Even here in Sierra Leone or West Africa, the name Geechee is derived from the name Geechee. And they have rice culture. Gullah comes from Gullah, and they got what? Forestry culture and rice involved. Rice is their staple too. These are the exact people that anybody who wanted to commercialize South Carolina needed. So they didn't name us Gullah Geeches. We named ourselves in the spirit of Kuji Chagalia, self-determination. They didn't call us Gullah, we named ourselves. These were the names that we decided to identify with. Because many of the people who ended up being over there came from these groups or from these regions. Now, you might see a people right now that have 1,000 people in them. But in the past, they could have had a political apparatus that included tens and thousands. Today you say, oh, this tribe is small, how could they have been dominant? But the Gullah people actually extended from the Gullah forest all the way through Liberia, all the way down into Cape Mount area, before the Mandang came. And when the Mandang came, they absorbed largely the Gullah group. So when you say you're a Mende, do you know that the Gullah was largely assimilated into the Mende? Think about it though. If the Gullah was here first and the Mandang came and subdued them and brought them into their tradition, and that's what you call Mende today, how many Gullahs are Mende and how many Mendes are Gullahs? Wouldn't it make sense that we're coming back Mende? If many of the Mende were originally Gullah and we knew we was Gullahs and called ourselves Gullahs, this is the reason that they came for our ancestors. That's why this is on. So to sum it up, so to sum it up, to back it up a little bit, we wanted to go and apply for citizenship for Gullah Geeche people on the basis that there's enough historic, cultural, and now biological, scientific evidence to prove that these people that call themselves Gullah Geeches have a high percentage of ancestry from this region. Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, Mali, Senegal, but primarily, very closely to the Mende people and the Timni people. And they make up the majority of the people in this country. That's very important. That's very, very important. That's very important. That's something that you should really buzz on. Boom. Because when you see some of the crafts that Gullah Geeches make today, like our sweetgrass baskets, we made them because we was making fanners. We had to make rice fanners. If you look at a rice fanner from South Carolina and a rice fanner from Sierra Leone, it is identical. We took that knowledge with us in our brains and recreated it with the materials that resembled the materials back home. They say that we lost all of our culture. It's a lie. It's a lie. We have a Mende song preserved within our Gullah Geeche culture and traditions, where a family have remembered a Mende song, a crying song, a song that you sing when someone dies in the tradition. In fact, it was a Sunday song. It was a Bundu song. It was a secret society song from among the women. When somebody died, the women would cook, and when they would cook, they would sing this song. The body is not gone yet. He's still here. We have to cook. Hurry up and cook. Hurry up and cook. Gullah Geeches have the same damn tradition. After someone dies in our family, we take their private dishes and go to their graves when we bury them. We break all their dishes so that their spirit doesn't stay behind or anything that they favor. The food that we eat in commemoration of them, we put it on a plate and leave it out for them, because we say the spirit has not yet passed, has not yet gone over. These are Gullah Geeche cultural and spiritual traditions that most of us in the United States of America have no knowledge of. But if we check, most of us have a Gullah Geeche ancestor, and if you check your blood like most people are, the majority of us are coming back Mende of Sierra Leone. So this is the history behind why this is happening. This is why I'm taking my time to give it to you, so you can understand all the points. So we felt like if African Americans return. And there would be no Freetown without that return. So there would be no history related to Freetown in the history of the world. And if you take this particular place out of the history of West Africa or the world, you have to rewrite it all over again. This is a critical place. You understand that? So we feel like we deserve the opportunity as Gullah Geeches, based on our cultural heritage connection, based on our historical connection, based on our contributions to modern Sierra Leone, to our ancestry. We brought back the knowledge, the same way the European took us because we had certain knowledge, certain understanding. It's the same reason, it's the same thing happened. When we came back, we had a certain knowledge and understanding of how to build a society that was foreign to Africa. We came back with a Eurocentric way of building a place. We had lost a lot of what kept people together here. But Freetown also ended up being a place that Africans who were on their way across the Middle Passage were recaptured and brought back and became part of the community here in Freetown. When you say Creole people, they're made up of those first two groups I told you about. 800 Jamaican Maroons came here in the year 1800. And then I'm talking about, it was 800. It was 800 that came. They also were fighting the British in Jamaica. They got evacuated after signing a treaty with the British. They were Maroons. They took them to Nova Scotia. They rebelled and no, man, I don't like this. They brought them back to Freetown from Nova Scotia. That was 8 years after they brought back the first group from Nova Scotia. So there was literally an exodus happening. That's the Black American connection. Now you see the Caribbean coming through Nova Scotia too. We don't understand this history, or we will understand where we're supposed to be at right now. We will know where to start. So, also over 40,000 Africans who were destined for plantations in the Americas were pulled off of slave ships by the British Navy and brought here to Freetown. And when they got here, they already met a Creole culture. They already met roads and homes. They met a settlement already that was settled by those who came before them. And of course, they didn't know English. They weren't Christians. They were still going through the Middle Passage. Imagine, you go through the Middle Passage, they grab you off the boat. They don't take you back to where where you came from. They take you all to Freetown. Or they take you all to Monrovia later on. So they created these Creolized cultures out of our ancestors. So why would we need DNA evidence to prove that we belong here? Sierra Leone only existed in the Freetown Peninsula up until 1961. The rest of the modern country of Sierra Leone was under a protectorate status, and the native rulers controlled their territories and worked diplomatically with the British in Freetown. Only Freetown was the colony. Freetown and Sierra Leone are synonymous. You don't get Sierra Leone without Freetown. You just have the name. But you don't have the political entity, you don't have the country. That's why everybody in the country speaks Creole no matter what their tradition is. Because of the influence of the people in Freetown. So this is a very, very important location, and our people need to respect each other's history. For the last 30 years plus now, Gullah Geeche people have been coming back to Sierra Leone on historic homecomings. They've been coming back. They say that these are homecomings, but they don't include us in the citizenship. They say that we're having historic homecomings back to Sierra Leone, but we gotta have an African ancestry DNA test. Not no other DNA test, just African ancestry DNA. If we want to apply for our citizenship here today. And we try to avoid that in 2016, when we went there first, we said, let's collaborate, DNA testers, the Gullah Geeches come together, let's push forward.
Sierra Leone diaspora.
Sierra Leone diaspora. We created one group for the Sierra Leone American diaspora. Let us all come together. And it didn't work out the way that we hoped for. But now, people with African ancestry DNA tests who come back to Sierra Leone are now being granted their citizenship by the government. That is historic. For me, I'm proud because I don't know if me and my wife wasn't open to helping the DNA testers and connecting them with the people they connected with, and maybe things wouldn't be the same right now. But it's just historic to know that we played a role. We seen that it was needed. We seen that we had a right to it, and we went for it. And so I'm not an African ancestry DNA tester, so I don't even have a dog in the fight. I was helping because I'm a Gullah Geeche and I was already here on the ground, and my late chief told me, hey, help this brother. So I was just helping the brother out. But at the end of the day, it didn't end up the way we wanted it to. The DNA testers now have their citizenship, but Gullah Geeche fight continues. Last year, 50 Gullah Geeches came here for a historic homecoming, and I don't believe citizenship for us was even discussed. In fact, I've been here 8 years, and many people of this generation are learning about the Gullah Geeche relationship here through our work. We're actually engaging the youth, engaging the media, engaging the people in the villages, people who were neglected prior. And so now we have definitely come to understand that not only do we deserve citizenship in Sierra Leone, but I think that we really need to make a demand for it. I think we really need to make a demand for it. So that's why I say Gullah Geeche people have a right to citizenship in Sierra Leone, but for now you got to have an African ancestry DNA test, which is a whole nother thing. But I'm glad that they got it. I have so many friends that's coming to get it because they're descendants, and the reason why, no matter where you go, you're going to find a Mende descendant among African Americans is because of the story I just told you. The story I just told you. If you're Mende, then you are related to the people of the Mali Empire, and you're also related to the people of the Gullah Forest region and the coast. Today, those people have mixed in and developed one thing called Mende. So just know that there's many groups or many lineages and bloodlines within Mende. Mende is like a empire with multiple ethnicities within. So knowing that you're a Mende is not enough. You should know what, are you a Kapa Mende? Are you a Gola Mende? Bai Mende? Which one? Because it was like a United States of Mende. But we don't understand it until we come here and understand how the culture really is. So it's dope. It's dope, and I believe that we all got right to citizenship in Sierra Leone. Because of what I told you, Sierra Leone is the capital of Pan-Africanism in Africa. Pan-Africanism happened here. That's the story I'm telling you about. The first expression of Pan-Africanism in Africa happened here in Freetown. That's who we are. We brought elements from the Congo, Yoruba, Ghana, America, Caribbeans, all here to one point, and formed a new civilization, a new society, language, culture, everything. So I think that none of that would have happened without the existence of Gullah Geeches, and I don't think that Gullah Geeches would have ever happened if there was never a transatlantic slave trade with the British from Bunce Island to Charleston, South Carolina.
Thank you.